Hello and welcome to episode 33, part 1 of my Wurm Unlimited tutorial series. This episode is going to be on making our first wooden house. Let me begin by saying to all my American brothers and sisters, happy Thanksgiving. This is a special episode for all of you and for you, Robert, for asking for this episode. So I know you've all been working hard for the past year, so now you have an opportunity to rest from the toil and hard labour of your jobs and enjoy 4 days as Rainstorm is going to. So there we go. Now this is a special episode, but by the end of this episode, including all the parts to it, I don't know how many parts there will be. Okay, I know I just said house, but you'll see. I hope you will appreciate why this is a special episode by the end of all the parts to this episode. And I hope that also makes sense. And also realise, without any shadow of doubt left in your minds, every last one of you, why this is the daddy of all survival games to date. Period. Okay, so carrying on. I want to thank Tosh for mentioning in a comment that Steam's got a sale on at the moment. It's 10%, may not sound like much, but in my opinion, this doesn't need any discounts, this game. For goodness sake, what else are you going to possibly spend money on that can give so many, well, however long, but you know what I'm talking about. You'll realise this in another year's time when you're still playing this game and your hours are in the thousands. You'll realise what the best money you've ever spent in your life is. So anyway, getting back to the topic, there's a sale on and it will last until the 1st of December 2015. It is of course currently today the 26th of November, so you've still got a few days to decide. Next, I want to thank Mythics for continued help with answering all the questions. Rainstorm and me, without question, truly appreciate all the help you can give, because it's just like you said, if I don't have to keep answering, well, not have to, I enjoy answering comments, but obviously the less comments I answer with the technical questions, the more time I have to make videos. And I'll tell you now that this episode that you're going to watch today, and episode parts, has taken hours and hours of planning. I'm not saying that to sound like some complete nonce, because you know that already. I'm just telling you this took a long time. Okay, so let's start on building this house. Now I'll tell you now, we aren't going to touch at all. There's a couple of reasons for that. One, I want to first talk about it, because the worst thing that you can do in Wurm is rush into doing something and then realise it was a mistake. With low stone walls, for example, it can take a while to remove them, so you don't want to go there and you don't want to do that. So that's one reason. The second reason is I don't know how big Rainstorm wants a wooden structure to be. Okay, I don't know how big she wants her house to be. So though, before we even get started, firstly, here is $1 million tip. This is the one thing which will make you golden when building a house of any kind. If you're going to forget every single thing I tell you in these episodes about houses, this is the one thing not to forget. This is the one biggest golden rule to building houses. The biggest pro tip I can give you on this subject. Whenever you build a house, always make the doors double doors. Always, without question. And I will repeat myself later on in this episode just to emphasise how important that is. A double door does not take up 2 tiles. It only takes up 1 tile, okay, the entrance. So do not worry about it. Just trust me on that. They're essential. Because let's tell you why. Because what's the point in giving you that golden rule if I don't explain why? Excuse me, sorry. The reason why you want double doors always is so that you can travel into them whilst being on your cart. As strange as that may sound, you will want to, because we're going to talk about buildings, and in the buildings you will store different things. Let's give you one example. If we have a bulk storage bin, a BSB in there in our house, we want to be able to transport all of the items from our cart out of the rafts into that bin. Let's say, for example, iron ore. We've gathered up, or iron lumps, we've gathered up 1,000 odd or 2,000. We can just drop them straight into that bin. Right, okay, I've made my point. Moving on. Secondly, there are some questions you need to ask yourself before you even think about building your structure. Okay? You need to say to yourself, do you prefer wood or stone? I mean, to answer that question, do you have plenty of wood? Or do you have plenty of stone? So do you have plenty of wood but hardly no stone because you don't like mining? Or do you have tons of stone and hardly any wood because you prefer mining? That sort of decides what material your structure's made out of. Stone houses are stronger, but they're more complicated to make. And don't worry, in this episode we're focusing on wooden houses. I will do a stone house. I don't know if that will be after this episode or do some other subjects and then go back to doing a stone house. Because you'll all... I don't know, I'll decide on that a bit later. For now though, I'm just explaining the different decisions you need to make. For my personal choice, okay, and this is by no means to try and tell you what to do. I will never do that. I will only give you the information so you are informed on your decisions that you make. I'm only trying to help you with that. For me, next to water, it always looks lovely with a wooden structure. It looks more natural to the landscape. But of course, unless I can get it very high quality, I'll always be repairing it. Well, not always, but it will need repairing more often than stone. So there's another factor in your considerations. But to me, to see a little wooden lodge by the lake, well, bliss. What can I say? Okay. Also to mention, don't worry if you change your mind in 1 week's time. So let's say you build a stone house there, and in a week's time you decide you want wood, a wooden house. Or you build a wooden house there, and in a week's time you decide you want a stone house. Structures are not like fences or walls. When you build a structure, you get a writ of ownership. And by destroying the writ of ownership, you destroy the structure. So there you go. In an instant, you can change your mind. And it doesn't matter. You've only wasted a bit of time building it. Which is, yeah, so no big deal. It's all fun. Your skills would have went up. It's all good. Don't worry about it. Okay, so... where are we? Yeah, I've got a wall of text written here because, again, it's proven to be the only sound way of trying to cover the majority of subjects that I want to with all the information that's involved. So forgive me again if I pause while I read. Okay, so that was secondly. Thirdly, the only limit to how many different types of buildings you can have is your imagination. So let me help you, let me get you started on this train of thought that I'm now seeding in your minds, okay? Because you're going to be engaged. Yes, so here we go. I'm going to now start you off, okay? You all have fantastic imaginations, but let's get you started off. Number one, you can build a house to just simply live in. So, you put a bed in it, you live in it, you're dwelling. There's one type of house. You could build a storehouse for all the crops that you've been growing. So you can put your BSBs and FSBs in there. You can build a huge warehouse or warehouses for mass selling. So even more BSBs and FSBs. Sorry. So, you know, dependent on your grand scheme of things, dependent on your ego is how big that gets. You can have, and I owe this one to Rainstorm, on the outskirts of your territory on the water, you can build a lighthouse. Now we're going to get to multi-structured buildings. I'm going to mention them in this episode. So there's another one. You can build a multi-story structure, which will be your lighthouse, and in the top you will either put a lava fiend, which will give off light, and on every side of the top level you will put a window, so that lava fiend's flames will be seen out of every window. Or you can put a lamp, and every window will shine that lamp, a clear signal out to sea for if you're on a public server to warn people that you live here, because you're fast becoming a dangerous person. Or a very knowledgeable person, whatever way you want to take that, it's okay. So there's another structure, a lighthouse. Okay. You might want to build a boathouse next to your harbour or your pier for storing your boats in there. Oh, you can build all sorts of wonderful little channels going in and out of different boathouses. Oh, don't get me started. Really, seriously, do not get me started on that. Okay, next. You could build a gatehouse. Now imagine you have a vast tract of land, you're on a public server. At the beginning of your property, you can build a gatehouse, thereby securing the entrance to your lands. And you can make sure it is made of stone, and you can make sure it is really high quality, so it will take a long time for anyone to try and bash it down. Okay, there's gatehouse. You could build a cart house for your carts and wagons, for storing them and the different materials necessary to do associated with them. You could build a factory, and it could be that you have bulk storage bins with cotton and a spinning wheel and the other other machinery associated with cotton for making armour and for sails, etc, etc, etc. Or the factory could be for blacksmiths and their tool making, or a tannery for your hides, or a leather worker for your leather working, or weaponsmith or armour smith. Oh, for goodness sake, don't get me started again, okay? It just goes on and on and on. Or you could have, your structure could be an armoury for your weapon racks and your armour racks, so you can display your different types of armour you've made to your guests and visitors. Or you could make a crypt for your coffins and name one specially for me, so I have a place of rest for the future. But it's okay, because I've got my own coffin. We've been there, seen it and done it. Or you can have a reception area after your gatehouse for your guests to arrive in, and perhaps you can start making the outer structures made of marble, so you can really start to impress them with your grand designs. Or you can have a slaughterhouse for your slaughtering of your animals and have associated equipment with that inside your building. Or you can have every 50 tiles out, along with your guard towers out into the wilderness, you can have hunting lodges where you keep a store of food and healing materials that won't go off because you're keeping them in bins, FSBs and BSBs. Or you can have a bakery or a cookhouse or a kitchen where you're going to do all your food production and have all the different associated containers with your food kept in there. Or you could have a greenhouse for your special trees that you're going to be growing and your crops, so you can keep them away from the critters and the animals and hostility, and you can nurture them and keep the resources required and the tools required in that area. Do I really need to go on? I mean, Has it not become clear about what I just said a moment ago about your imagination? I'm not imaginative. I've just given you a few things off the top of my head, okay? Oh, look at our poor solitary guard roaming. Oh no, that's Rainstorm. That's weird. We lost our guard tower, but we still have the guard roaming round. Oh, and there's our dear Rainstorm going for a walk in the snow. Okay, now, so getting back to what I was saying to you. I want you to get engaged with buildings and structures. I want you to think about your own unique designs. And I want you to comment. And I want you to tell us what structure you perhaps thought of. And maybe in another special episode in the future, I will make that structure for all to see. You don't have to comment, of course you don't. But I want to involve you. Every single last one of you that watches my episodes, whether you comment or not, you are all just as welcome. So I leave it entirely up to you. Okay, let's move on, because I know that blinking timer's going to go in a minute. Reasons to build a house. Let's now discuss the reasons for building a house. Okay. So here's some reasons for building a house. So I'm just talking about a general house. First of all, and because you've come to know by now that a house is simply not just a house. There is many different functions for a house that I've mentioned a few, but let's take it to a different level. Let's step somewhere completely differently. Let's imagine we're in Wurm Online. You found your perfect spot in Wurm Online. You cannot afford to deed. You can barely afford your subscription, okay, so I'm with you there. You can't afford to deed. You found your perfect location. But you don't want someone to come along and deed over you, because then, like I explained previously, you get wiped out your land. It's then their land. There is a trick to stopping them deeding over your precious land. Whether this is a nasty trick or whether this is a good trick, I leave that down to every individual. It's exactly like a gun. The gun is not evil, it's the person wielding it. Either they wield it to protect themselves from nasty evil people, or they're an evil person that uses it to their own means. So, like I say, this is not a bad thing or a good thing. I'll let you decide. A house. So what you do is you can build the structure to the house. You don't have to build the complete house, just start the structure. What that will do is then make a limit for people that have to be a certain amount of tiles away from your structure for them to be able to deed. So what you're doing when you do that, you are stamping that local area with your protection. They cannot deed over your structure. You have safeguarded your area. So what do? You build your structure and you finish the walls on it. You have to finish all the walls on it before you can plan another structure. So you go to another corner of where your area, however far away it may be, hopefully not too big, because, you know, it does get... Well, it's up to you. But you go to each corner of your area and you build yourself one of them little houses. What you do is you make it impenetrable for people to deed over you. You've now safeguarded your lovely little lagoon. Yes, you may have people getting cross with you, but such is life. You deal with it how you want to deal with it. I'm not here to tell you about that, although the message I should be sending to you is love your neighbour. That is the message that I do intend to send to every last one of you. Love and respect your neighbours, because one day you may need them. Okay, carrying on. Because we are talking about... Oh, I apologise if I waffle on too long, but I can't help it, you see. When you deal with a game this brilliant with so many different hidden facets in it, you have no choice but to talk and talk and talk. So, moving on. We were talking about the reasons to build a house. So that's Wurm Online. That's how you can safeguard an area. Another use for a house, obviously, is out in the wilderness. If you build a house, you've got a safe area to hide in if you're being chased by an animal. If you've put a lock on the door, then you're safe from the trolls as well. So there we go, all good. That's another reason for having a house. Another reason for having a house, you can place a bed in it and thereby get the access to the sleep bonus, which will appear up here when you start to sleep. And this really applies to Wurm Online, okay, where the skilling is much slower. That's why I've not in earnest gone to beds yet. I will make a bed, I will show you sleep bonus. You see there it's frozen, I haven't got any anyway, but it appears here as this empty line. As you sleep and your sleep bonus goes up, you'll see the progression. So there we go, I have mentioned that, but that's another reason for a house. Putting a bed in it, getting a sleep bonus, speeding up your skills. And I believe when you get past 60 or 70 in all of the skills, I'm quite sure that it may really slow down anyway, so you are going to still need the sleep bonus. So those of you out there that are doubting that, you're in for a big surprise, because when you start to get high with these skills, I think it's going to start to slow down a bit. But we'll see as we get there, we'll see. So there we go, there's another reason. Can place work areas like an enclosure, but obviously it's not an enclosure, it is a house. So you're now asking me a question, aren't you? In your mind a question has formed. What's the difference between the safety of an enclosure and the safety of a house? I've got to hand it to you as one of my viewers. You really are sophisticated in your thinking, because that is one excellent question to ask me at this stage. So let me oblige you by giving you the answer, because you deserve it. The main difference between an enclosure and a house is you've got to start thinking multi-level. Oh yeah, you can build up to 16 levels in a house, so your enclosure might be limited by space, but your house certainly isn't. Now, what's one reason for having a multi-level structure? Well, I'll tell you, over this lake, if I made this 4 levels high and stood at the top level, what a beautiful view I will get above the trees over the lake. Oh yeah, so there we go, there's the answer to your question. That's the main difference between an enclosure and a structure. Multi-levels, but I'm going to talk about multi-levels in a bit. Okay, moving on. So, reasons to build a house. Okay, the last one, I'm going to go on too much otherwise. I'm just going to simply go on too much, and I need to fit a certain amount of information in this first episode. Okay, I'm going to finish it off by saying, obviously, building structures is a good way also of training your carpentry skill. We know with stone it's masonry, and I told you about the small stone walls. Well, with your houses, if you want to build wooden houses, well, it's going to get your carpentry skill up nice. So you can start to think about our future episode of when we build a wagon, or when we start building them beautiful small and large crates. Oh, the joy with them. Trust me, I won't be touching a BSB. I'll be doing them in the future. No BSBs to be seen. All crates. But that's another episode. And it's a fantastic one. But that's in the future. Okay, so getting back to where we're at. Okay. Next, so that was reasons for building a house. Next, let's discuss tools and materials and other considerations to building houses and structures. Okay, but it's really wooden houses we're talking about at the moment. Okay, so to start this bit off, you'll need a mallet or a hammer. Okay, we're building wooden house, you're going to need a mallet or a hammer. In Wurm Online, the higher quality level tool equals faster building time. It doesn't matter in Wurm Unlimited, because as we know, it's all quick, so it doesn't matter. But in Wurm Online, things are set at the intended pace, which was a good pace. Okay, it was a good pace, but it takes years to get there, so it's up to you. I like to think that some of you, after progressing in your worlds alone, you will master skills, certain skills, and you'll get this great urge to go into Wurm Online as premium and show some of them what it's all about. Okay, so, but anyway, it's up to you. So in Wurm Online, the higher quality level tools you use, the faster you will build your walls to your structure. So there we go, there's one consideration. Another consideration, this is where Rainstorm wants her structure, her first house. She hasn't told me how big she wants it yet, so that's why I'm not going to be touching any tools yet. But a consideration is it has to be on flat land, like your fields. Okay, but a structure must be even flatter than fields. So just like with our poor old guard tower, it will need to be on flat land. Hence why all this land here is flat, perfectly flat. So if I put my shovel, let's grab my shovel. Okay, you'll see it's all flat. Must be flat for your structures. Any structure you want to build, guard tower, houses, whatever, you need to have the structure flat. Okay, so that's some of the considerations. Let me check my notes. Right, okay, something else, because we're talking about tools, materials and considerations. For each wall, whether it be window, door or simply a wall, you will need 20 planks and 1 large nail. There, didn't I make that easy for you? Okay. For building structures, I know you're asking yourselves and you're asking me, what skill do you need for building structures, for the size of structures? I will give you an example in a moment, but I will say to you, check the wonderful Wurmpedia. It has a formula in there that it tells you about, that tells you to what size you can build your structures. Wonderful formula in Wurmpedia. Okay, Wurmpedia has been an absolute asset to me in gathering all the information that I'm giving to you in these episodes. Okay, now here's a little example. If you want to build a 2x2 structure, so that's 4 tiles, you will need a 12 carpentry skill. Now I'm going to get to how you work that out. Okay, I'm going to get to that. In fact, I should really explain that now, but I don't want to mess my notes up. Give me 1 second just to check this. No, I'll leave that there. I have got notes. I will go on to it. Let's move on. I'm wasting time. The house will be classified as finished when you have all the walls, door, double door placed. And that means windows as well. So if you have a wall with a window in it and you have your double door, okay, once you've got all 4 sides or all sides to your building, all the walls, windows, doors finished, the building is then classified as being finished. Okay, it's then, that means basically what that means to you is you can place a bed in there. Okay, there, that's the simple. Don't go complicated. It simply means you can put a bed in it. Our house on the deed that you're all rushing, some of you are going out to, you notice there's no floor. Well, there is a floor. There's no roof to it. The roof I kept like that so Rainstorm can look at the stars at night. Hey, there you go. She can gaze up at the birds. You don't have to put a roof on. I'm going to get to roofs, don't worry, and I'm going to get to floors. But, you know, my point is, once all of the walls to your structure have been built, it's then classified as finished. And you can put your bed in there, your bins and everything you want. You can put locks on the door. It's secure. You don't have to have it on a deed to make it secure. Just locks on your door, because it then has permissions that you can set. Oh, I've just left the deeds, for goodness sake. I'm not going back there. Right, so carrying on. Ugh. Right, okay. Time is never with us, my friends. It is truly never with us. But I'm going to finish off this last little bit. So let's see, just to finish off. So for making our wooden houses and getting you prepared, you're going to be using planks, small nails, large nails and planks for the walls. For the floors and the roofs, you're going to be using small nails, planks and wooden shingles. The reason I'm telling you all of this before I finish this episode is so you can gather up the materials in preparation for us making a wooden house. So for the walls and windows and doors, I've already told you what it requires for each side, for each tile. So one wall there on that side of the tile, 20 planks, one large nail. When we get onto the wall, the floors and the roofs, you'll be using small nails, planks and wooden shingles. I can't tell you how many you're going to need of each or any of it, because I don't know how big your structure's going to be. All I can do is build one and show you, and then you can decide. There are 2 stages to building a house. There is the planning stage and the building stage. And with that, I'm going to say, wherever you are in the world, God bless you, and take care of every single last one of you. And again, happy Thanksgiving to all my brothers and sisters in America. And to all of you, have a fantastic day. See you in episode 2 of Houses. Bye bye.